Welcome back to Archaeology After Dark, everyone. I am your host, Daniel Rhodes. My guest today is David Ian Howe. David, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, man, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be on the pod.
So, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I want the full story, the whole story, the archaeology story. What do you want?
Um, Full story,
What?
archaeology story, whatever you want to, as long as it's, PG-13 or below.
Okay, that's a good barometer to go with. Uh, yeah, born and raised Long Island, New York. Moved to Nashville when I was in high school, and then ended up going to UTK for my undergrad. UT Chattanooga my first year, UTK my last three, and then had to do my like basically nothing transferred from Chattanooga, so I had to do like my whole degree in 3 years at Knoxville. Um, did history, Spanish was my minor, and did archaeology as my other major. Then went to grad school in Wyoming, where I got my master's. Uh, Worked for the Army Corps of Engineers for a few years, doing with New South Associates. I was a contractor with them. Or I worked for New South, I should say, as a contractor of the Army Corps, working for the Veterans Curation Program as a collections manager for years. We helped American veterans get jobs basically while they helped curate archaeological collections. And that was kind of like my, not to say my Malinowski or like Jane Goodall-esque field work, but like my anthropological population of people that I studied was U.S. military veterans, which was very fun. Um, that was off the record, not really like I shouldn't say off the record. I wasn't like there was no actual cultural study, but it was a fun, thing being around U.S. military veterans doing archaeology. And yeah, then after that, that was right around COVID. I worked there 2018 to 2021. And that's like right when my internet stuff started picking up and the podcasts and all that. And I figured, what a good time to quit and do this full time. And then, yeah, the Ukrainian war popped off, and then all my stuff tanked. And then, yeah, just been grinding since then. Got a lot of stuff. And to say that kind of took up the news in the social media world for a bit there, right when I quit. And then, yeah, just been YouTubing, writing a book, multiple podcasts, and then, yeah, stand-up comedy is my other thing. And that's about it, dude. Um, I like hiking. I like dogs. I love tacos. The standard guy.
See, on my Instagram profile, when people ask what I'm interested in, I put archaeology, education, tacos.
Oh, perfect. Okay, we're
Yeah.
in good company.
Yeah. Taco enthusiast is, if I could put that on my business card, I would.
I do love tacos. By the way, do I need to put headphones on, or am I
No, you're
good for you?
good. You're good.
Cool. All right. Sometimes it echoes. I
Go
was gonna
ahead.
say, sorry, yeah, I live in Wyoming now. Sorry, that was why I had to run and shut the window. The wind is crazy on the plains. So
So let's talk dogs.
sure.
So there have been dogs as long as there have been people. This is, an assumption I make just because, people go back further and further in history all over the world and they have random motifs of their dogs like on the floor in their homes in like Pompeii. And
Right.
it's like a really graphic depiction of a vicious dog. And it just says, my dog is basically called Fluffy.
Right. Yeah. Um, the three-headed dog in Greece too technically translates to spotted. It's pretty cool. Yeah, man, it depends. It depends on how we define people. It depends on how we define dog. If we want to say human, the human species, dogs have been around for like a blink of an eye. If we want to say for human, quote unquote civilization and like cities, agriculture, all that, dogs have been around since the start. So it's just kind of a depends on where you're at. But yeah, for like modern human written history, dogs have been around, put it that way. For it, but I would say 20,000 years ago in the Ice Age in Siberia is when dogs like begin.
And then, people started to spread out and we brought our faithful canine companions with us because they were good to us and we were good to them retrospectively. I
Yeah.
feel like I used that term correctly.
Uh, r I know what you're trying to say. Is it reciprocatingly? Is that the right
Reciprocal.
word?
There we go.
Reciprocal. There we
Yeah.
go.
That's a math term
Um,
there.
yeah, it is. Yeah, pretty much just like wolves. I was actually just in Yellowstone last weekend or 2 weekends ago, doing some wolf spotting with this guide, and I met Rick McIntyre, who's like a famous author that documents all the Yellowstone wolves. And he was telling me like, and this is something I had come to the conclusion of, but it was cool to hear him say it to me like while we're staring at wolves, but um, that the most similar relationship in the animal kingdom to humans is wolves. And that's kind of how that domestication process began. Um, because wolves are very socially complex. They have like pecking orders, and like we can get into the alpha stuff. We don't have to do it, but like all of that, they have social hierarchies and social systems that kind of similarly mirror primates like us. And it's very complex. And so humans and wolves would have noticed that and picked up on that. And that's why that like coalescence kind of works. Because you don't have there weren't saber-toothed cats, those are only in the Americas, but like large cave lions and cave bears weren't coming into human camps and being domesticated, but like why dogs, or why wolves, and it has to do with that sociality, I would say. And they had just a reciprocal food, the same way we train dogs today. You give them food, that's how we speak to them. That's how ancient Siberian hunters spoke with wolves.
Yeah, this is, the fun thing about this relationship between humans and dogs is we can actually make memes about them now. Like it'll be like a wolf saying, "Hey, something smells good coming from that dude's campfire over there," and then it'll have a caption 3,000 years later, and it's a pug in a party hat.
Right, right. Yeah, I know that exact meme. A good one. Yeah, pretty much though. It's just like dogs have won, and cats to an extent too, have won the Darwinian, like, what would be the word? Not game show. The Darwinian race. They don't have to do anything. Like they're fed, they're provided with the mate, they can reproduce, they don't have to have predators. Like they have successfully beaten the game. And I would say dogs more to an extent than cats, but yeah, it's pretty wild. They just did it.
But can you imagine like the first people trying to domesticate a dog or a cat? Like, hey, buddy, you want some of this, and I want some of what you're bringing to the table. Let's you know, figure this out, make this
Yeah,
work.
exactly. I wonder that all the time because I always I don't know how to phrase this other than I always have three opinions in my head. I guess politically, I have like a left leaning, I have a right leaning, and then a center leaning opinion when something pops onto my feed, right? Um, and then I'm like, okay, what angle should I approach this with? And that's kind of how I approach archaeology and history. And there's probably in that sense one guy, let's just be whether this is right or left, that was super scared of the wolves, killed them, right? And then you have somebody who was super into taking all these pups out of the den and caring for them in like an animal welfare sense and being like, oh, we got to raise it, and that they're all God's creatures. And then there's someone in the middle who's just like, I don't know about this, but just throw it some food and we'll figure it out tomorrow. And I think that's kind of probably what happened over time. And then because it might have started with people killing wolves because they're getting too close, or it might have started with people going into dens and raising puppies. I doubt that at first. But if that was happening more and more, and you're just taking pups out of the den and putting them into your village, that might make them less fearful over time, and you come back to that center opinion. Or it was just a two of these big social complex apex predators are hunting in the same territory. They're going to coalesce and they're both going to eventually figure out how to get along with each other before killing each other, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was thinking it more of like a symbiotic relationship, like it's two forces like coming together for the mutual benefit. Like the wolf sees the human as advantageous and the human sees the wolf as advantageous. Like this animal is
Hmm.
now here to protect me and my people and my crops from, smaller vermin and whatever. And this wolf now has a reliable food source coming from this human.
Yeah, exactly. And you're an archaeologist, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, 'cause you've been a sea and all that. So you're familiar with behavioral ecology?
Hmm.
Yeah. So I know there's many different paradigms to view the world through in archaeology, but for me, especially as a hunter-gatherer archaeologist, like the baseline, how do we understand what's going on at the site would be behavioral ecology, and I just apply that to wolves, and in that mutual symbiotic respect, it's just that wolves, if you're just looking at things in terms of calories, wolves are like, why waste all this time hunting and chasing a bison that's going to take hours to days, systematically picking apart its legs until it collapses from exhaustion and then have to wait for it to die while you eat it. Or I can just walk over to these giant apes that have food scraps laying outside their campsite and just get used to eating that food. Especially when a lot of wolves are being like outcasted, or like lone males are looking for a new pack, or something. Sometimes lone females, they might see these, talkative primates as a source of just free calories without having to hunt, especially without the safety of a pack to hunt with. So, yeah, it is a symbiotic relationship. The same way a remora fish sits on a shark or a ray, that's probably what wolves were doing at first. And then for humans too, you then get sentinels. You get something that can help you hunt. You have something that can help guard. And then you have companion, and a lot of times using their furs for warmth.
Yeah, and it's amazing that like instinctual behavior stays in a species like dogs and cats. They don't actually forget those predatory instincts. Like it's always there. Like when I've had a dog, he will just like kill something and bring it to me. He's like, "Sir, I found this
Yeah.
in the yard. I don't like it.
Yeah.
It's dead now."
Right. Yeah, and they often don't eat it at first too. They'll bring it to you like a cat. Um, what kind of dog was that?
German Shepherd.
Okay, yeah, same. Uh, yeah, he liked bringing me half dead things in his mouth all the time too. Or my shepherd did. Yeah, it's interesting. It's just one of those quirks of evolution. I mean, it's different in people because it manifests in different ways. Like our grasping hands, I guess, is our attitude we use all the time. But their mouths are their appendage, and that's how they explore the world and do things. And hunting is their game, and that's still there. Even if you're a Chihuahua or you're a Siberian Husky or a Great Dane, you're still a wolf. Same species. It's all pretty cool.
Now I'm picturing a Chihuahua trying to hunt something in the wild.
I'm assuming if you got like a pack of 50 of them, they could take out a deer. Maybe
Yeah.
12. Nah, it'd be probably have to be 50. They'd have to like overwhelm them like World War Z or something.
Yeah, they just have to avoid the pointy, stabby end of the deer, but the Chihuahuas are really low to the ground. So, okay, now that's a visual I'm not going to be able to forget anytime soon.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, Pretty neat. Chihuahuas. I just was reading about this the other day too, where the touch Tlachichi, I think is what it's called. Tlach. I can't. I'm butchering it now. It's a Nahuatl or a Toltec word, but they like an original type of dog that the Chihuahua came from, that the modern Chihuahua is from, and there's like several indigenous breeds like that are pretty sick. The Xolotl Queenly on top of that, and then yeah, just everywhere in the world you go. That's something that I'm writing the book about, and uh, that I guess I am the spokesperson for as of late. Is just that no matter what culture you go to in the world, anthropologically, there is a dog there, and they have some kind of culture with that dog. And that's what I find most fascinating about them. Yeah.
Yeah, like if you go into especially far eastern cultures like Tibet, they have huge festivals just for dogs, like celebrating their loyalty. And they've been doing those festivals for hundreds of years. And it's just like a big parade of dogs walking through the street.
Yeah. Especially out in Tibet too, and in East Asia, dogs are seen as like they help ward off evil spirits and bad spirits and things like that. So that's what those little food dog statues are in China and Japan. Um, But yeah, Tibetan Mastiffs too are among, if we're to consider dogs a technology, which is another thing I argue, dogs are like Tibetan Mastiffs are wolf deterrents. That's pretty much what they are. And they use them in the Mongolian Mastiff is like basically the same breed. And they use those to fight wolves away, which is just pretty cool. You're just turning them back on their cousins. I guess they're brothers, but yeah, it's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
I look at like the descriptions on some breeds from like the American Kennel Club, like the Corgi especially. It was like bred to hunt bears or something or deter them. I'm like, have you seen a Corgi? It's like a little vertically
For
challenged,
corgis? Huh.
maybe.
I've never seen that. I'm not questioning it. I'm just I didn't know.
It
I know
is
they were heard for
100%.
sheep or something.
I am wrong on this just because
Oh,
Corgi's a little short guy, just a little guy.
they're little guys. But yeah, another the cultural aspect there. They were herding dogs, but they're now the royal, dogs of the English British royal family, which is kind of cool. Um, just like the Greyhound was like the best dog you could get in Rome if you're rich. Pretty cool. If you were really rich, you could import one from Egypt, which was kind of cool. And that's why there's dogs carved into like little tombs and mausoleums everywhere too. It's like I was wealthy and protected by these little dogs.
My God, I'm imagining the first like Roman to ever own a Greyhound, and he's like, "Brethren, have you seen how fast my dog is?"
Yeah, pretty much. Um, and like to go even further too, greyhounds and salukis and things that are bred in the Middle East, uh, likely for hare hunting, I would imagine, but also just immediately gambling. And we know they're gambling pretty heavily in like ancient Ur and Uruk and all those places in Mesopotamia where those early dog breeds were from. So, just pretty cool. People have been people throughout history.
So let
Yeah.
me ask you this: what kind of evidence do people find that gives them that kind of definity? Like we know this type of dog was here.
Genetics mostly now. In the old world, luckily we have a lot of art, and I guess the new world too, in Mesoamerica, a lot of art with dogs, so we can tell with some inference like this is what they would have looked like. But Rome for sure. There's just greyhounds carved everywhere. Ancient Egypt, there's also some greyhound stuff. But it's also like mixed with like jackal iconography too, but they're kind of similar looking. Um, Ancient Mesopotamia, there's like dog descriptions of dogs, and then there's, I believe, carvings and things like that too that let us know. But um, a very famous instance is well, I don't know if it's famous, but 2020 maybe there was or 2021 rock art panel in Arabia that was found that has a guy with and if you see the image you'll know it's a guy, but he's got a bow and arrow and a couple dogs and they're leashed. Three are leashed, which are probably like puppies or younger hunting dogs that aren't ready to hunt yet, and then other dogs hunting ibex. um, but those dogs have these little, and this is for the audience listening, just look up Arabian rock art panel hunter, and you can see these little slits on the side of the dogs, the images of them, which I thought was just separating their legs on the rock art, but an archaeologist had pointed out that no, that's actually just the white stripe that those dogs had. And if you look that up now, the Canaan dog, which is native to uh, Israel, Palestine, Levant, the Syria, Lebanon, that area, they're all dogs look like that there. Like the Canaan dog, and it's retained those traits, and you can see that on evidence in rock art 10,000 years ago, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, especially in those hot areas like Palestine and places like that, the dogs would have those distinct markings. They'd probably be able to see them a lot easier than, say, a big furry dog like they would in like Russia or
Yeah, and it does. I'm not a canine ethologist or a geneticist in any way, but the white stripes on dogs or like any white markings, like the beagle's like white tail, it's called the shepherd's lantern, is bred so for visibility, and that makes sense to me too. Yeah, so I would agree with that.
okay, I just learned that today and I'm like, wow, that's awesome.
Nice. Yeah, I learned that on another podcast I did when the interviewer was telling me that. Well, at least the shepherd's lantern on the beagle. But yeah, well, as they're running and chasing something, you can see the little white tails stick through the trees and the bushes, so you can know what you're looking at.
Honestly, that's really helpful, especially, this is like a Southern culture thing. If you're going out hunting with your dog and you kind of need to be able to see bro after he takes off running after a duck that's, 2 miles away.
Right. Yeah, and then their call and stuff like that too helps, keep track of where they are. Yeah, pretty cool.
So, how do you go about developing content along this kind of line? Like you and I both have a lot of experience doing this, but I get this question a lot, like the creative process, like what helps you create something for other people?
Um, Money is increasingly becoming the driving force. I was kidding, but
No, I 100% agree with
uh,
that.
yeah, that is, you don't get paid enough on Instagram or TikTok or Twitter, any of those, for it to make much of a difference, but it does help. Um, at first, man, I'll be honest. You did you go to grad school?
Yo, yeah.
Yeah. Um, so I left grad school. And in grad school, at least in my experience, it's just kind of ingrained into you. When you are not at school, you are at home reading or writing or doing research, and you shouldn't be doing anything else. You have to finish and get the stuff done. And there's just like pressure on you to finish your thesis, do your research, get out of there, make some publications, do field work, and there's this like driving pressure. And when I graduated, I didn't end up going to get my PhD. I just went right into the workforce. And when I would come home from that veteran job, I would come home at the end of the day and like freak out that I didn't have a partner. I just had my dog. That I had nothing to do. I had no papers to write. I had nothing to study. Like when I went back to work the next day, I was like, "Oh, you just do the same thing again the next day," and like it was crushing. So that's when Instagram was just starting to get big. And I started just like putting posts out every day about dog stuff that I knew about because I wasn't publishing. I wasn't actively in a school getting funding to publish and do research. So um, I would just come home and do that. And then I got really good at it. And part of my job at that other job too was public outreach, talking to people, making posts every day, like scheduling Facebook posts and things like that. So I just kind of went home and did it on my own, and it grew and it grew and it grew. Um, and then now, I mean, mixed with the monetary, mixed with the crushing feeling of what do I do when I'm not working on something, is like, oh, I have to be posting something or learning about something. Mainly I just love it. I the when someone tells me they learned something or I see something gets shared a bunch, like it's a good feeling knowing, okay, this post did well, the numbers look good. That's one thing. But also the numbers look good because people are learning something, and that's nice. It's better than like, I think we can get into this too. Social media is very toxic and it's bad for you. But if I were to post like a shirtless selfie on the beach and I would sit there and religiously look at how many likes it got or shares or comments, like I think that's very unhealthy. But if it's a post about something that I put a lot of work into that I want people to learn from, and that's doing like numbers in the millions, then I take pride in that. I'm like, okay, that was good. And then you try to chase that high the next day, and the next post does like 300 views, and you're like, why? But um, yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of yapping, but I guess a similar experience for you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like the moment I finished grad school, I had like this void. Like I didn't have to write book reviews anymore. I didn't
Hmm.
have to put together slideshows unless I actually wanted to. And I had
Yeah,
to figure out like, okay, so what do I do now? Like I had a job that I was happy in, but at the same time, it was a like 9 to 5 museum job. So I was like, okay, I need to do more. I can do more.
yeah. So similar to me. Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. What's your? I should have followed. What's your Instagram right now? I probably follow you then.
Country roads.
Country roads. Um, Country Roads World Cup just popped up, but
Yeah, I was not participating in the World Cup. I was not invited.
yeah. I don't know if I is it just Country Roads, all
Yeah,
one word?
Country Roads 524.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so where do you do most of your stuff?
Mostly here in Alabama, but I do travel on occasion. Uh, so, for those of you who don't know this, I know I've probably said this before in some episodes. We actually updated the Alabama State Social Studies standards in 2024. So, archaeology is part of the Alabama State curriculum for social studies, especially in elementary school now. So, feel
Good.
free to reach out to your local archaeologist, and they will be more than happy to help you develop things that will make your students into better people.
Awesome. That is really good to know. I guess that's because of Moundville and you have quite a lot of history there.
I think it was so a lot of it was how inclusive the panel was that redid our state social studies standards. And several actual
Hmm.
archaeologists were on the panel for the update, and they're like, so we could put in early history now instead of just like, the white people showed up here in the late 1500s and decided not to leave.
Right. Oh, I just lost it. There we go. Yeah, and that is something too, because I've been saying to one thing I see a lot is like people will post about the Mississippians and like the trade networks they had and the mounds and like how would I explain this? Like you can see the mounds, yeah, but when you see reconstructions with the wooden and thatched, huts and structures on top, all the comments on YouTube were like, "What else were we lied to about?" And it's like you weren't lied to about it. It's just like not as sexy as Egypt or like the Maya to be like. So it's just like you don't learn about it, and then unless you're in Alabama, like kids growing up in California don't learn about Moundville. So um I find that interesting, and then that's why it gets like lumped in with all this pseudo stuff sometimes. And it's like, what else do they not tell us? And it's like you can't really explain the complex Mississippian polities and how that all worked, and like their chiefdoms and how that like to children. But I'm glad that's changing, and pretty good. So, but yeah, it is like one of those things that's like it is in most of if you live in the Midwest or the South, the Mississippians were in your backyard, literally. So it's like it is weird that in growing up, I didn't learn too much about it until I went to college and a little bit. And, you learn about Cahokia, I think a little bit as like a footnote in history books. But yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, and then you get the people who are like, so Moundville isn't a real place. None of these people were actually here. It was all white people all the time, and we're like, no, no, it
Yeah.
wasn't.
Oh, right. And sorry, I was going to say that as well, too. Yeah. And it is, that's something that I try to impart on a lot of people, especially when I do podcasts with people who aren't familiar with this kind of stuff. It's like, yes, like I would say the most important date in world history after 1453 when the Ottomans busted down Constantinople would be 1492 when Columbus, got not discovered it but got here and opened up the two worlds, right? But there is before that thousands of years and millions of people and lives and societies that lived here before then that were just as important that just didn't get put into the Western canon until that time. So it's like it's just interesting because when you learn about American history in school, like especially growing up in New York, okay, the English got here, Columbus discovered it, the English got here, Jamestown, Plymouth, and then there's the Iroquois, the Algonquins, you learn about the Powhatans and stuff. But that's about it. And then they just disappear after the French and Indian War, and it becomes, Lewis and Clark and all that. Then you have Tennessee. Uh, but yeah, imparting onto people that all of those complex polities and chiefdoms and civilizations that lived here before then needs to be spoken about way more because history didn't start at 1492. It just changed, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, we always, the rule of thumb that I've always gone by, and a lot of people have told this to me also, is 1540 here in Alabama is when the French and the Spanish, showed up in almost in tandem. And they're like, so we are staying here now. We are not going back across the Atlantic.
The French got to Alabama too? I never really thought about that.
Yeah, they were
Yeah.
some of the first settlers in Mobile.
Really?
Hmm.
Oh, I guess right, because they're coming up through the Mississippi. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That stuff too, and I know it gets dicey because you don't want to like glaze colonization by any means, but like just the British, the French, the Spanish, and the Portuguese, and then the Dutch as a wild card, just fighting over territory out here is its own crazy history in itself, and like obviously it's at the detriment of all the native populations that lived here too. But it's just with all that going on, just such a fascinating period of time where like all these cultures were like intermixing, and you think about it too, like gunpowder had like basically just been invented and like been used like when Columbus got here, he was just using pikes essentially and like an arquebus. So it's like it's like the late medieval period is kind of where I'm trying to go with this. Like they just got done being knights and like that type of Europe. And it wasn't like Minutemen with muskets and stuff and for like another 200 years and things like that. So it's just this interesting late Middle Ages clashing with indigenous cultures is like pretty cool. Because if you look at pictures of Jamestown, they look like knights with pikes. Like it's interesting.
Yeah, they got
Um,
those, metal helmets still. And I'm like, wow,
yeah,
that is retro. And like I show those images to kids and they're like, Mr. Daniel, we thought they wore like body armor. I was like, oh my God, body armor wouldn't be happening for like 400 years.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Uh, yeah, it's just it's interesting. And then you have I'm gonna say too. I was in Oaxaca, Mexico earlier this year, and like there was a church there that was like fully built in like 1532 or something like that, and I had to double take because that is like there's this full erect church in the middle of Oaxaca, not even on the coast, 15 whatever. That Jamestown was still a swamp at that point before like the English even put up like a little palisade. So it's like there's so much history here going on. I mean, colonization, I guess, in a sense, going on at that time, but it's just such a deep, I don't know. There's just so much to talk about.
Yeah,
It's a
and
really
that's
interesting
that's like the
thing.
fun thing about doing, digital programming like you and I do. We never actually run out of things to talk about. Like there's always something
Oh
else
yeah.
we can talk about.
Yeah. And every day. And everything bleeds into something else too. And I've probably said this on my podcast before too, but another thing that not that like we were lied to about history, but another fun thing about that period of time is you just learn that the Louisiana Purchase, we bought it from France at a discount. And you're like, okay. And like we just it's French territory. But really, Haiti had just rebelled, that colony. All the slaves freed themselves and declared independence. So France took a huge pay cut. Then Napoleon was like, "Hey, we need a lot of money to go conquer Europe, so I'm gonna have to sell this land, but I don't want the British to take it. So let me just sell it to the Americans because they need money or they need land, and I can sell it to them for cheap." And that's how Lewis and Clark starts in the Louisiana Purchase. And it's like there's so much complex stuff going on other than yeah, we bought it from France, and like Napoleon sold it to Thomas Jefferson, which is just like a detail that like is, and that's a huge swath of land that um yeah. And another fun fact there too is like Lewis and Clark were the first to encounter grizzly bears. The Spanish had beforehand. um they hadn't seen them before, and indigenous tribes called them like rival nations because of how powerful grizzly bears were. And it took like Lewis and Clark's team like six muskets to shoot them. Like it's just like yeah, sorry, I'm just kind of going on
No,
a
no, I,
tangent, but
I think about this a lot, especially when I, teach the Louisiana Purchase to kids or something. It doesn't really hit them how much territory it actually is until you
yep,
show them on the map how much territory the Louisiana Purchase actually got us. Like it is not
yeah.
a small chunk of land.
Right. And then mixed with what was New Mexico at the time too, or I guess Spain and then New Mexico. But or just Mexico, I should say. But yeah, and then how all that gets seeded and moved around, and then um, another fun one too. I had a guy. I interviewed him. He's like a horse expert, and there's a lot of new books coming out saying that horses have like always been here or whatever. According to like oral tradition, and like that's its own thing. But there's no archaeological evidence of horses here after the Ice Age until the Spanish reintroduced them. But kind of what he's getting at here is like there's yes, these oral traditions are saying horses have been here for a while before white people. It's because way, way up on the plains there, horses that escaped Spanish ships and things like that and Spanish missions go up through the plains and encounter native tribes probably 200 or 300 years before Lewis and Clark get there, or not even Lewis and Clark's other settlers. And Lewis and Clark only went on one little route, it wasn't too much spread. So there's native tribes like the Sioux or the Lakota or the Comanche and stuff like that that didn't interact with white people before they met horses, which is just a fascinating thing. So horses just appeared to them one day and then white people later, which is kind of really fascinating to think about. Um, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. So we're about out of time for today. David, do you have any advice
Oh,
for
I'm so
anybody?
sorry.
No,
I
you're
didn't know
good.
we were.
Do
Oh,
you have any advice for people who want to get started? Like I said earlier, I get a lot of messages and things from students about how they can go about creating their own content or like creating their own like niche out there in the internet. What would you recommend for them?
mm, that's a great question. Um, Reading comments is constructive, to an extent. Pick a day where you read comments, like Tuesday is a comment reading day, because someone's gonna call you names, someone's gonna say this isn't funny if you thought it was funny. Like pick a day where you know you're going to be upset about it, and do it. Don't read it every day. Another thing with that, when you're just starting though, you need to reply to as many comments as you can to drive engagement. So do it, find an in between there. But mainly, if you find something interesting and you find something fun, post it. Just do that. If you like, I could only talk to so many people at bars about dogs, and like I went on so many dates when I was like younger, and I would just yap about dogs and how interesting they were. And I was like, I can't just info dump on people in person. I have to put this somewhere. Do you have a thought that you want to get out? Like I just did on this podcast for 40 minutes. I'm so sorry. Uh,
No, you're great.
just,
That's what it's
just,
for.
oh, true. Thanks, man. I just didn't really bet only an hour. But yeah, just bottle that, put it down, write it, and get those thoughts out and make it coherent. And one last thing, if you can't describe your master's thesis or your dissertation in a single Instagram post, um, don't write it because no one's gonna care, kind of thing like that. Or I wouldn't say don't write it, but figure out a way to do that. You have to be able to give your dissertation or your master's thesis in an elevator pitch to some stranger, and the challenge with that is not using jargon, not using complex archaeological or words like that. Think about things in that sense. Make it so that if you were to meet somebody at a dinner party or you went to a bar, or a girl on a date or a guy on a date asks you, "What do you do?" explaining it to them in a way they can understand it. That's your goal, is try to do that.
Okay, I'm going to one up that and say if you're going on a date, try to turn your thesis or dissertation into a pickup line as a challenge for yourself
You ever heard about projectile function? Yeah, I think that's just that was my
without
imagine.
using the word hold many times.
Yeah, right.
Oh my God.
Or yeah, the penetration test in mind. Like, yeah, just trying to find a way to make it less innuendo-y, you know?
Oh my God. I'm
Yeah,
just like
it's
picturing
just
the 50 or so archaeologists I've seen on Tinder and Bumble, and they use words like that in their profiles, and I'm like, oh my God.
oh, really? Okay. Uh, yeah. I guess one last thing there too is archaeology to any student listening. I know I'm saying this as a white American male, but like just Archaeology, being an archaeologist has given me, not that we have a badge, but it is a like, oh, right this way, sir, a lot of times in a lot of circles because it's like people always have questions and are interesting. Um, and with that, you get to go behind the scenes a lot of places. So be kind, be nice. But a lot of times with that, you'll meet people that ask pseudo questions, or they'll ask about giants, or they'll ask about, just something that makes you uncomfortable. Learn how to navigate those conversations well and quickly. That is something very important, especially in the South for me. But
Completely agree.
yeah, like without being combative. That's what I'm getting at. And even on the internet, on public, even if it's not anything about giants or pseudoscience, just learn how to speak without being combative. That was very hard for me to learn. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something, this will be the final note. This is something a lot of archaeology programs I've noticed in the past 5 years or so have actually taken into account that archaeologists haven't always been trained on how to talk to people in the community.
Uh,
And they now make a conscious effort to train students to not only teach but just talk to people when they go to conferences or just like little pop-up presentations that everybody does now. You need to be able to talk to semi-coherent people at a bar.
right. Exactly. Um, yeah, I have more to say, but I don't want to keep you. But yeah. Um, I would agree. That's a great line.
Yeah. All right, take care everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you.